It's always an honor to have a member of the President's Cabinet attend our conferences. And in particular, it's an honor to have this Secretary because Shaun Donovan, the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, runs so many programs and is so integral to the work we do around the country. And he's been a real ally, a real friend. And this is not a new gig for him. You know, in New York City, where he was the Housing Commissioner, I'm going to mess it up, Mr. Secretary, but he for the city of New York, he ran the housing department there. He worked for a community organization, the Community Preservation Corporation. It's all right here, but I refuse to look down because you all look better than this piece of paper. But look. Obviously, there's a lot of late-breaking news relative to the work we do for all our counseling agencies, our FIP groups, our community activists, our community reinvestment people. There could be no more relevant and no more important member of the President's Cabinet than Shaun Donovan. So please join me in giving him a real warm welcome. Shaun Donovan.
It is so wonderful to be back with you all again this year to serve as John Taylor's teleprompter. I've really enjoyed that job over the years. Seriously, John, thank you for the kind and accurate introduction. You were exactly right. Much more seriously and much more importantly, thank you for your remarkable, remarkable leadership. You are, for so many of us in D.C., a moral compass. You tell us where we should be paying attention, how we should be paying attention, and when we feel like, are we ever going to get something done in Washington, your energy, your enthusiasm, your sense of righteous indignation is an enormous boost to all of us. So let's give John Taylor a big round of applause. And let me just say thank you to every one of you that is here this morning. It is no secret that we have been through one of the most difficult periods in our nation's history, and you all have done absolutely remarkable work. You're out there meeting the needs of families and communities every single day across the country. And while the work that you have all done has always been important, it has never been more important than these last 5 years since President Obama came into office. I also am just incredibly touched by how deeply we work with all of you in so many ways. I feel like, I was thinking about it this morning, I feel like I should be holding my senior staff meeting here at your conference because so many of my team are here working with you in different ways. Brian Green and Sarah Jarek and so many others that work so closely with you. We couldn't get stuff done around the country if it weren't for our partnerships with you. And I would also say, as John always does, having a conference that is focused on a just economy is exactly what we all need to be talking about right now in D.C. We all remember that when the president took office, we were facing down the worst economic crisis of our lifetimes. And, with many organizations, I go through the litany of statistics of jobs. But look, all I need to say is you all lived it, right? You saw the unemployment lines, you saw the boarded up businesses, you saw the foreclosure signs throughout the communities that you have been working with and helping to revitalize for decades. And so what did you do? You didn't gnash your teeth and throw up your hands. You got to work. And together, we've been able to help 8 million families stay in their homes. We've put to work $7 billion in neighborhood stabilization funding that has helped to bring back communities in all 50 states. You've made sure that African American, Latino borrowers who have been shut out, not just in this crisis, but for too long, are getting the justice they deserve through our fair housing laws. And as a result, we are seeing improvement in places around the country. 8.5 million new jobs, over $2.5 trillion of home equity that's been created in the last 2 years. But we also know, as we gather this morning, that we have much farther still to go. But we also, one of the things the president's been talking about that is important to remind folks, I know you're headed up to Capitol Hill right after this. This isn't just about 5 or 8 years of economic crisis. This is about a decades-long trend that has squeezed the middle class and cut people off from climbing that ladder into the middle class. For too many Americans, the odds of getting ahead in life just seem insurmountable. This is not the America that we want for future generations. That's why we all have an obligation to take this challenge head on and to use your words to create a more just economy. I will tell you, we have a president in the Oval Office who is completely committed to this. He has said over and over again that this is a make or break moment for the middle class and those striving to get there. And so he will keep hammering on an agenda that is designed to build those ladders of opportunity that give every American, no matter what they look like, no matter where they come from, the chance to lift themselves up. We're going to fight for a minimum wage that is just for working people across this country. I hope you saw that just yesterday, he announced new rules on overtime pay that, within the authority he has, are going to help build toward that decent living wage. He's going to make high-quality early education available to every child in this country. He's going to provide job training so workers can compete in this changing economy. And he's going to give every American access to quality, affordable health care so they can have financial security and peace of mind. That's right. And let me just say this very directly. There is nothing more important that we all can do over the next 3 weeks than help our families, our friends, the people we work with every single day to sign up for affordable health care coverage. Ignore the politics, ignore the naysayers. 4 million people have signed up in the marketplaces on healthcare.gov. This is an opportunity we've been waiting for decades. Don't let it go to waste. Just a few more weeks, please help us get folks signed up. Now, you might notice that there's one piece of this opportunity agenda that I haven't mentioned yet, but you all know that it is fundamental, and that is getting every family access to decent, quality housing. You know that the home, yeah, you can clap for that, come on. You know that home is at the center of every family's life. It's where we raise our kids. It's how we put down roots in our communities. It is the foundation of our lives, not only in our communities, but also economically too, right? How do most people send their kids to college? How do most people, if they're going to start a small business, how do they save for a decent retirement? Through their homes. And you all know that it has gotten harder and harder through this crisis. We just published a study showing that we're having the worst affordability crisis in this nation's history, a 43% increase in worst-case housing needs between 2007 and 2011. And the saddest irony about this is that as the needs have grown, the resources have declined. Recent years have been full of incredible uncertainty here in Washington and painful cuts to the programs that we all care about. But before you trade your coffee for a stiff drink this morning. I don't want to get you all too depressed. I really do believe that you gather here in Washington at a moment where there are signs that things are changing. I don't want to be too optimistic here, but I think we have a moment. If you all push hard, if you stand up to be the advocates that I know you are and can be, we do have an opportunity to turn this thing around in D.C. One big step, we finally have a budget bill. Now, for all of you from outside Washington, that may not seem like a big deal, but it's been 3 years since we actually had a real budget to operate under. And just last week, the president released his 2015 budget proposal, and I hope that you will do everything you can to fight to make sure it becomes the law of the land. Why is that? Well, one of the most important things in there is a 1/3 increase in our housing counseling funding, $60 million that, you know, some people would say, well, hey, the crisis is receding, but you all know the truth that part of this is about helping more families stay in their homes, but you also know that it's just too darn hard for African Americans, Latinos, low-wealth folks to get access to credit these days. It's something the president's been talking about the last few years. And our goal in this budget, front and center, our first goal is to increase access to credit for more American families, responsible families who can be successful home buyers. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to pair this increase in housing counseling funds with a new FHA initiative that we call Homeowners Armed with Knowledge, or HAWK. HAWK embeds housing counseling with a HUD-approved housing counseling agency. All of you guys, that's right, into the FHA origination and servicing process. What does that mean? Through HAWK for new home buyers, borrowers who commit to housing counseling would qualify for real, serious savings on their FHA-insured loans. Lower upfront premiums at closing, a permanent reduction in the annual premium after several years, or both, to help them get into that home. And, by the way, to stay there, right? By incentivizing housing counseling, HAWK expands access to credit and makes sure we have a larger pool of educated buyers making smarter choices. In addition, other tools we've recently introduced, a change to our manual underwriting guidance, our Back to Work initiative. Through all of those, we're ensuring that lenders look at the whole financial picture when they're underwriting a loan. This helps those who may have complex credit histories, they got hit hard by the financial crisis, but we all know that fundamentally they are credit-worthy borrowers, and we want to help them be considered for a mortgage. I also want to say, and I think this is very important as you're up on Capitol Hill making these arguments, there's this false tension that somehow at FHA, expanding access to credit puts the FHA fund and taxpayers at risk. That you can't do both. You can't expand access to credit and protect the FHA fund. That is absolutely false. What I like so much about HAWK and these other initiatives is that they are going to prove that expanding responsible access and protecting the FHA fund go hand in hand. Why? Because with HAWK, with housing counseling, those borrowers are more likely to stay in their homes and pay back their mortgages. That's better for them, it's better for their communities, and it's better for the FHA fund and for taxpayers. So don't let anybody force you into this false division between safety and soundness and access to credit. We're going to help families who are ready to buy achieve their dreams of home ownership, and we're going to do it the right way. Now, that is critically important work. Go fight for an increase in housing and counseling. Our budget is incredibly important. But we're also gathering at a moment where Congress is considering changes in our housing finance system which will have powerful impacts, not just this year in our budget, but for decades to come. And I want to make sure that the fighting that you have been doing, the way that you have raised your voices on this issue continues. Because I'll tell you what, you are making a huge difference. You know that we need housing finance reform that ensures access to safe, quality products like the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage for every credit-worthy borrower. And at the same time, we got to find a way to provide much more funding for affordable rental housing, down payment assistance, and all the things that are critical to the work that we do every day. That's right. And you know, it's interesting, housing has historically been an area of real common ground across parties, at least until the last few years, right? So I got to say, I was very, very encouraged by the announcement that we saw this week from Senate Banking Committee Chairman Johnson and Ranking Member Crapo. I really believe that they have put forward a good faith compromise and that we should all commend them for their leadership. It is a bipartisan approach, and I believe that the agreement is a critical step forward in reforming our housing finance system. I will also say it would not have happened without John Taylor and all of you. We could not have gotten to this place without your advocacy. Why do I say that? Because when you look at the agreement that was released, it fundamentally recognizes what you have been saying all along. Even if we're not going to get every single thing that we want, we must have a tool that makes credit available to low and moderate income families, and it can't just be a direct pot of funding, as important as that is, that goes to affordable rental housing and down payment assistance. So I was enormously encouraged to see the bipartisan agreement specifically call out a commitment to a level playing field for all borrowers and all communities. Yep. Doing reform right means that we will help those in underserved markets by creating a new housing regulator with not just the flexibility, but the responsibility of facilitating broad and equitable access for all creditworthy borrowers. This reform package means that we will have not just that responsibility, but a real financial incentive to serve underserved markets. Now, it's interesting. Somebody told me that this idea came from this amazing leader and group, John Taylor at NCRC. I don't know if you had heard this, but in fact, I think it might have originated right here and ended up in the bill. And yep. Advocacy matters, guys. It matters. Now, the thing we're expecting to see legislative language tomorrow, and the thing that we all want to watch for is that this is a real incentive, right? I will tell you, this is a market where even 1 basis point can move behavior significantly. So I'm hearing encouraging signs that this may be an incentive much larger than that, more than $500 alone, but we've got to look at that carefully and make sure that this is a real incentive for lenders to make sure they're reaching every family, every community that you work so hard every day to help get access to credit. That's right. I'm also hearing that we're going to end up with the potential of funding the National Housing Trust Fund and other key investments to the tune of more than $50 billion over 10 years. $50 billion. And that is also a result of all the fighting, all the ways that you've raised your voices these last few years. When the new system is up and running, these funds will support the rental housing that communities desperately need. I talked about our worst-case housing needs a few moments ago, but also deeper access to home ownership, including down payment assistance for first-time buyers. Reform means that we'll maintain the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage that has been the backbone of housing in this country for decades. And so in total, the bipartisan agreement will preserve the American dream of affordable home ownership for all creditworthy borrowers from all communities, ensure that affordable and sustainable rental options are widely available, and provide access to credit during severe downturns, while making sure that our housing system is better protected from the kind of crisis that we've seen. And this is something I want to make sure. You know, people talk about, well, we got to reform the system for taxpayer protection. Who was hurt worst by this crisis? Latino borrowers that lost 2/3 of their wealth in 4 years. Think about that. African Americans who lost half their wealth in just 4 years. We can never let a crisis like this happen again. And I will tell you, I will not be able to look myself in the mirror when the president is done with his job in 3 years and I leave HUD. I will not be able to look myself in the mirror if we haven't done something to protect the people and the communities we serve from a crisis like this ever happening again. So I appreciate the applause, but as I look around breakfast this morning, I'm sure a bunch of you are saying, who is this crazy Shaun Donovan that thinks legislation can get done in Congress, right? What makes you crazy enough, Shaun, to think we're going to get this done? Well, let me tell you something. Whether you go back to the National Housing Act of 1949, when President Truman and Senator Taft worked together to craft that bill, whether you look at Ed Brooke and Walter Mondale, who bridged partisan lines to put together the most important fair housing legislation this country has seen, I truly believe, even when it's least expected, that we can come together as a country and do great things. I believe that this agreement could be that kind of moment again for housing, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to put more than $50 billion into what we care about, to create the first real system that will drive a financial incentive for serving the places and the people that have too long been left behind. And as long as you all raise your voices and keep the debate focused not on basis points and securitization platforms, but on the people and the communities that matter most, I believe that reform can become real. We have got to make this happen by taking action together. We must overhaul a system that isn't working well for the average American family. We must work together to give renters and buyers the tools that they need to access this housing, because in America, everybody who works hard and plays by the rules deserves a fair chance to succeed. It's as simple as that. With our partnership, with your voices lifted high again on this issue, starting in just a few minutes, we can get this done. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for your leadership. Go get them. Thank you.